Hello Spartans, and happy Mother's Day to everybody out there, especially to our Spartan moms. Now, in this video today, what I'm going to do is I will go over my experience at the National Parks Spartan Sprint yesterday in Washington, D.C. Now, as I'm talking to you right now, a little chilly out here, a little overcast, and it's rained overnight. Honestly, I wish this is the way it was yesterday at the race. And I left here outside of Philadelphia. It was pouring rain yesterday morning. I left around 4 a.m. in the morning to head down there. Had an 8:15 age group start heat to go out with the 40 to 49 year olds. And it was a little bit warmer, obviously, when I got down there. Felt a little bit more humidity. Actually, it's the first time I really felt humidity all year. It's been really overly cold this winter around here. And I was like, no big deal. Now, last summer at National Park, the heat just vaporized me. If you see the photos of me last year, or go back and watch the review that I did from the stadium, I was wiped out. Now, unfortunately, that was what happened to me yesterday too. Not so much in the competitive lap that I took, but the second lap I took killed me. I'll go over that in a little bit. Now, this is the first time I've had a chance to really talk to you about a stadium race in 2018. It's not just a quick review at the stadium. I think I did one from Citi Field and I did another one out at Dodger Stadium, I think. But I didn't do one yesterday simply because I was so wiped out after the race. And I didn't post a lot on social media because I didn't have much time between the two laps. So, what's different this year from previous years with the stadium races? Well, for me, I'm not running elite. I'm running in the age group, which would have been competitive last time around. So there's a little bit of change in the way things compete. And I notice I have some advantages coming out of the elite into the age group on there, but I haven't really got myself into shape like I should have. And yesterday really exposed some things I thought I had taken care of. I still have failed the rig every freaking time, all 5 laps this year, and I don't know why. It's really irritating me now. I think it's more of a mental thing than anything else. I overthrew my spear in my morning lap, which also irritates me because it was a beautiful throw. I just threw it about 12 inches too high, and it sailed right over the foam target. So that meant I had a lot of extra burpees to do yesterday, which kind of wiped me out a little bit towards the end, even though I think I ran pretty good for the most part. I need to get my endurance up of the running because I haven't really run a lot this winter, and I thought I was doing a lot better last week or two, really since getting back from Dodger Stadium. There's been a lot more spring in my step, and I mostly attributed that to finally getting caught up on some sleep. If you don't know, the week before Citi Field, I was actually in India for the week at a conference and was go constantly while I was there, and got very little sleep, and actually didn't sleep for about 36 hours for the trip back and the day of leaving. So I didn't have a lot of time to really recuperate going into Citi Field, and then I turned right around and flew out to the West Coast for the Dodger Stadium, and I was still feeling that tiredness, but I came back, actually got some rest and everything, so I felt pretty good going into the race yesterday. And I didn't think the heat was going to affect me. I thought it was supposed to be in the low 70s, but it turned out it was in the mid to upper 80s. In fact, I heard them talking about it was 9. I didn't actually look it up. Didn't even mentally think about looking it up. I know when I got in my car and got on the road, it said 88 degrees outside. I think they said it was 90, 93 during while I was actually running the second lap, and I'm thinking, dear God, it just can't be right. So, and then of course when I got home, it was probably about 25 degrees cooler up here, which is crazy because we're not that far from DC. So the heat really got to me, and I've got to work on essentially some nutrition issues here. And I've always had this problem, even when I played football in college and high school, effectively dehydrating too much. And I think I could point back to last year and say I probably lost 10 pounds of water weight during that race last year, because I kind of know how my body fluctuates. I probably did the same thing, if not worse, yesterday. And that second lap was really, really hard on me. it was interesting doing the age group stuff this time because I've kind of been really lazy about getting in the corral for the age group stuff and haven't paid as much attention. Yesterday, I actually made the effort to get more up front. I went in the second, I think the second 40 age group, and they actually made us sit and wait literally till 8:15 to go off. Now the 30 to 39 group, I think they only had like 5 waves of those guys. So we literally sat there for about 12 minutes before they would let us run and take off. Now, I thought that was very interesting, but at the same time I like that because we are kind of trying to compete against each other and hopefully not get passed by other people, although I got passed by way more people than I want to admit yesterday. And I went up with like a 55-30 time, somewhere in there. Not something I'm really proud of. I think if I hadn't had to do those burpees, I could have definitely been under 50 minutes, but I think I could have run a little harder too. I probably could have, if I really did it, if it all went right, I probably could have been under 45. That's what I need to be working on, right? But the heat was more than I anticipated. It was more than the forecast. It seems like that's a trend at this race now. The other things that I'm noticing at stadium races, the first thing is the sandbags are much heavier. Now, I haven't run a trail race yet this year, but Spartan seems to have done away with their trademark sandbag pancakes. Now, they are going to more of a floppy rec bag, if you know what those are. They're big, and I'll show you, try to put a picture here of that from previous race, but they're much, much heavier than the pancakes we've had in the past. I could have very little problem just taking off and running and doing the steps with the pancake sandbags at the previous stadium races, but it's really hard to lug these things up the steps, and it's a little, especially when your quads are already a little burning, to get in there and actually go down the steps with them as well, much less just flat out run on the flats. So that's something I'm going to try to amp up. I don't have another stadium race till AT&T Stadium. There is no more stadium races till AT&T Stadium, which I will be at. And so I'm going to really work on trying to run with the really heavy sandbags, especially going up and down the steps and stuff, to work that out, because I'm losing a lot of time there. Another area that I personally lose a lot of time is the quote low crawl, which is effectively the barbed wire crawl for stadiums, where they put the bungee cords either across the steps or across the ramps. Now, yesterday they were only across ramps, and they did both up and down. There was 3 segments of that, 2 up and 1 down, and I just really go slow through that. I'm trying to work on doing that. And one of the reasons why I tend to go slower under those is because when I get out of there, I have a vasovagal response to it, and I get way hyper dizzy. And the second lap I got to run with one of my Spartan trainers out at Urban Fit, Andrew Trigg, and I was talking to him a little bit about it, and I've talked to a few other people about it, and I know my resting blood pressure is really low. It's, if I'm lucky, it's 100/60, but it's usually 90/60, and I think that has a lot to do with it. Everybody keeps telling me I need to increase my salt intake. I've got to do some research into that, so that's something I will be doing, is trying to figure out what's going on with this. Why am I getting that vasovagal response? So the second lap I was getting very dehydrated, so there was a lot of points in that race that I was getting very dizzy, and a lot of it has to do with dehydration affecting that. Now, that's the other thing I've got to figure out how to do, how not to dehydrate on these races, because summer's coming, and this is what's hurt me specifically at Palmerton the last couple of years, is just fizzling out because I'm just running out of sweat as I stop sweating. Last year, if you did Palmerton the Super, or even the Sprint, I ran out of gas at the rings, and I felt my body physically just go to a different place at that point. And it was because I dehydrated. I stopped sweating at that point. And I'm not sure that I totally stopped sweating yesterday. It was getting pretty close, but my shirt and pants and stuff were just so wet I didn't think I could tell anyway. I've got to do some research on this, because this is really affecting my ability to do the races the way I want to do them and the way I know I can do them. The other thing I've got to work on is my mental approach to the rings. Now, when I go out to Urban Fit and I do the rings out there, I just kill them right now. And I worked on it all freaking winter, and I'm actually doing rings worse in the race right now than I did last year. And that's another thing that's really bothering me. And I think it's honestly all mental at this point. So I've got to fix that as well. Now, something that's new to me this year with the races is I'm trying to do 2 laps at the stadium races, at least 2 laps. And this has been one of the number one reasons I got the season pass is I just did the math and I said, you know what? It's cost me more to pay for the individual races. Plus I can't do a second lap like everybody else that I'm kind of hanging around is doing. To do that, you really need a season pass. And so I went ahead and bought a season pass. I actually did the math. At this point, the season pass is paid for. All the rest of the races are essentially free for me, which is really cool. But once you get a season pass, you can go back and do a second lap. And the only thing you have to pay for is the mandatory $14 insurance fee. And you're going to pay for that regardless for anything. Even when I sign up for a new race under the season pass, I have to pay that $14 fee. That's just part of the game. Okay, now at Citi Field, it was freaking cold. I hate the cold, and we were all shivering too much. But they said I had to wait till at least 3:30 to do a second lap. Now, I probably could have gone off at 2-ish, 2:30 maybe. I don't know. I didn't stick around to find out. I was so cold and tired that I just decided to leave. Now, at Dodger Stadium, I didn't get a second lap time till 5:45, but there was nobody in the corral, nobody waiting around. So I hopped in right at 5 o'clock and did my second lap at Dodger Field. But I needed to hang out at the stadium all day long, which was a real drag. And yesterday I was kind of expecting more of the same. I was thinking, well, maybe it'll be after lunch. So as I got finished with the first lap, I basically slammed the Fit Aid, which really did not sit well in my stomach. I don't recommend doing that. And I went and signed up for my second lap. And they're like 10 o'clock, which was like 20 minutes from that point of me getting actually to the registration and getting all 3 done. And I was like, oh crap. I was thinking it was going to be like 12 or 1. And so you don't know when you'll get that second lap. Yesterday, I think, was one of the unique times that you can. I'll talk about that here in a moment too. So I do like the second lap, but to do that second lap, if you have a season pass, let me give you a little advice on this, because I've done this, tried to do this 3 times and successfully done it twice now. They've always told me when I first get there to come back after my morning lap to sign up for the second one. Go ahead and do that. Don't worry about it. It's really not going to change, to be honest with you. You need to go to the table that says same day registration. Don't go to the one with the barcodes or the no barcodes. Go to same day registration, because that's what you have to do. You cannot sign up ahead of time for a second lap. The system won't let you do that, which is frustrating to me, but I kind of get it. Now, think about it. If I'd have signed up for the second lap at Citi Field, how crazy would that have been? Because I was sitting there freezing and would have to stay so long, and I really needed to come back anyway. So I probably would have not done that, which would have thrown their planning off and everything. So I totally get it. Plus, they're trying to expose the sport and the brand to as many individuals as possible to grow and expand their business. Totally get that. Totally appreciate that. So just know that it's going to take a few minutes to get through the sign-up process, and you'll have to show them the ID. You do have to pay for the $14 insurance fee there. They do and can take your credit, debit card, or they can do cash. So just be prepared for that. You also have to have your ID again to prove it. There are 2 kinds of season passes, which I totally didn't even think about. If you're running age group or elite like I do, you have an elite season pass. If you're just running open class, you have an open class season pass. They're 2 totally different things. It's okay either way for this. They just need to know that so they can get their right coupon code in there. So try to have that knowledge ahead of time as well. Now, why was I able to run a morning second lap like that? Well, I think there was poor planning on Spartan's part. Yesterday's attendance at National Park was very low compared to the previous year. I don't know if there was some other events going on or something in the area, but I am pretty darn sure it had to do with the fact that there was a sprint in Massachusetts, and a sprint in Fayetteville, North Carolina, with Washington, D.C. being right in the middle. Now, I know Urban Fit, the gym that I go work out at, we had people at all 3 races. And I'm pretty darn sure that if they had only had the national sprint on the East Coast, most of those people would have been in DC with me, and I think the crowd would have been much denser and much more populated. Now, I don't know what the scene was like down in Fayetteville. I don't know what it was like in Massachusetts. I honestly haven't been online much because I was so wiped out when I got home yesterday. I didn't really bother getting online too much. But I got a feeling they may have had similar issues with the dilution of the brand so close together. Now, granted, Boston and Fayetteville are very far apart, and they probably wouldn't have affected each other so much, but having the stadium race right in the middle probably was a problem. Now, sometimes that's just going to happen, I think, when you're trying to run so many races, and right now the brand's not as big as sometimes we think it is, and that was a problem. There's no races on the West Coast, no races in the central part of the country. I think they maybe need to work on making sure that they've got a little more geographic split to make sure that they don't have such an overlap like they did yesterday. Now, for me, it was great because I got to run that morning lap and get the heck out of Dodge. Although I literally sat there in the shade in the bleachers for about a half hour trying to get where I then took a half-hour nap before I drove home because I was a little worried about driving back in the traffic of DC and Baltimore to get back. So, but as I did make that drive back, I slowly rehydrated myself. By the time I got home, I actually felt pretty good. And last night, enjoyed some Mexican food with my wife and feel better. Now, so here are my key takeaways for myself. I got to get my running endurance back up to where it's supposed to be. I think my speed's there. I just got to be able to keep doing it. This is going to be an interesting week for me because I'm going to be training a little bit, but I've got a 5K fun run for my dojo next Saturday morning, which I'm really excited about, and I'll see how that goes. I'm planning on actually going to my Spartan class and then go do the fun run because the fun run's usually about 10 o'clock in the morning, so I should have time to do that. I need to double check that though. I need to increase my work with heavy carries, especially the heavy sandbag carries. I do a lot with jugs and dumbbells and kettlebell carries, and that's not really the big issue, although my shoulders are really kind of sore from yesterday's jerry can carries. I'm going to really work on that because I'm losing a lot of time there. The low crawl stuff is a problem, but it's mostly a problem because of the basal ganglia, so there's some science type stuff I need to do some work on. Now, I will try to get that research done and get you some information on it, because if I'm suffering from it, I know others are as well, and I can help everybody else out. So that was, if you saw me on the second lap, I was probably suffering pretty bad because of all that, plus the dehydration and things like that. And I don't even want to look at the time. I think it was probably 75 minutes, most likely. It was pretty rough on me. But you know, at the same time, there were points where I could get my pace up and run again. I just had to get recuperated. So it was a good learning experience. I really thought I was going to do well at this race because I thought it was going to be a little cooler, and I thought I finally got the spring back in my step. It turned out to be my worst race of the year so far, but you're going to have those days. Now, for me, my next race is actually Tuxedo, up on the New Jersey-New York state line, and I'm really excited to go back to Tuxedo and try to beat that barbed wire crawl because that tore me up 2 years ago. So if you're up there, look for the Normal Fat Guy. I won't be wearing the shirt in the race, but look for me out and about. And I love hearing the comments when I'm out in the course, at the stadiums, the volunteers and other racers talking about the brand here, the Normal Fat Guy brand. And just keep chatting with me. I love having conversations with you. If you've got questions, comments, leave those in the descriptions below, or talk to me at the race as well. Until next time, good luck with your training, stay on course, and always stay true to yourself and enjoy that. And again, happy Mother's Day to all you mothers out there.